So you want to own a laundromat. Buy a row of washers, bolt them to the floor, put a folding table by the window, and let people feed in cash while you do next to nothing. That's the picture almost everyone starts with. Passive income, quarters turning into rent money while you're somewhere else entirely. Here's the part that doesn't fit that picture. There are only around 18,000 coin laundries left in the entire United States, and that number has been quietly shrinking for years. And yet, laundromats have one of the highest 5-year survival rates of any small business in the country, somewhere around 90 to 95%. Compare that to a coffee shop, where more than half close inside 5 years, or a restaurant, where the odds are worse. A laundromat, one of the least glamorous businesses a person can own, outlives almost everything else on the strip mall. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how a laundromat makes its money, why the washers and dryers sitting on the floor are the smallest part of the real investment, who quietly controls a huge share of laundry access across the entire country, without most customers ever learning their name, and where the actual profit in this business hides. A laundromat isn't one business, it's 3, wearing the same storefront. Version 1, the classic unattended coin laundry, 20 to 40 machines, no employees on the clock, a change machine bolted to the wall, and an owner who drops by to empty coin boxes and fix the occasional jam. This is the version most people picture, and it's the cheapest to run because there's almost no labor line on the budget. Version 2, the attended hybrid model. Same machines, but now there's a wash-dry-fold counter, a staff member behind it, maybe pickup and delivery through an app. This version costs more to staff, but it captures customers willing to pay someone else to do the folding. A service that can charge 2 to 3 times more per pound than a self-serve wash ever could. Version 3, and this is the one almost nobody outside the industry thinks about, the vended route business. Instead of a storefront at all, a company places machines directly inside apartment buildings, dorms, and military housing, splits the revenue with the property owner, and never deals with a single walk-in customer. This is a completely different business model wearing the same equipment. And it turns out to be the biggest version of the industry by machine count, even though it's the version with no storefront at all. Opening a storefront laundromat from scratch typically runs between $200,000 and $500,000, and in a premium location that number can push past $1 million. Buying an existing, already running laundromat usually costs less than building one from scratch because someone else already absorbed the construction risk. Equipment alone eats the biggest chunk of that budget, somewhere between $150,000 and $300,000 for a mid-size facility. A basic top-load washer can be bought for around $1,500. A large, high-capacity front loader built to survive constant commercial use can run past $10,000 per unit. Multiply that across 30 machines, and the equipment bill alone can quietly clear $250,000 before a single quarter has been dropped into a slot. Then there's the part that never shows up in the glossy business plan: plumbing, gas lines, and electrical upgrades capable of running 30 industrial machines simultaneously. Commercial washers need dedicated water lines, high-capacity drains, and gas or electric hookups a normal retail space was never built for. That build-out, the unglamorous part nobody photographs, can run anywhere from $20,000 to well over $150,000, depending on what the space looked like before the laundromat moved in. Here's where it gets interesting. Look at a single wash cycle. The water and electricity to run one load costs the owner somewhere between 15 and 30 cents. The machine charges the customer several dollars for that same cycle. On paper, that's one of the highest markups of any transaction in retail. Higher than a cup of coffee, higher than almost anything sold by the cup or the load. Drying tells the same story, just slower. A dryer running on gas or electricity costs somewhere around 50 cents to $1 in utilities per cycle. Customers pay for that. Cycle in coin-fed minutes, and a full dry typically runs $1.50 to $2.50. Again, a wide gap between what it costs to run the machine and what the customer pays to use it. So if the margin on a single transaction looks this good, why do so many owners describe this business as a grind instead of a gold mine? Because a laundromat doesn't sell individual loads. It sells access to 30 machines, 24 hours a day, whether anyone walks in or not. And that access has a fixed cost that never turns off. The single biggest recurring expense in this business is the utility bill, and it is almost never what a first-time owner budgets for. A laundromat running 30 to 40 machines can post a monthly utility and operating bill somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000, water, gas, electricity, and sewer combined. And the sewer bill is where things get genuinely strange. Most municipalities bill commercial sewer charges as a percentage of water usage, on the assumption that whatever water comes in eventually goes back out through the drain. But a meaningful share of the water a laundromat pulls in never reaches the sewer line at all. It evaporates, straight out of the dryers as steam. The billing formula doesn't know the difference. It just charges the laundromat for sewer capacity it never actually used. Owners who don't know to challenge this on their utility bill quietly overpay for years without ever noticing. There's another cost almost nobody puts in the spreadsheet. A coin laundry is, structurally, a room full of money sitting unattended for hours at a time. Coin box break-ins, bill acceptor jams, and the occasional gutted change machine are common enough that most owners budget for a security camera system, a reinforced coin door, and, increasingly, a shift toward card and app payments specifically to get less physical cash sitting inside the building overnight. Every one of those upgrades is another few $1,000s that never shows up in the buy some washers version of this business that most people imagine. Now, for the part of this business almost nobody outside the industry has ever heard of. And it explains a huge amount of what's actually happening to independent laundromats. Walk into almost any large apartment complex, dorm building, or military housing unit in the country, and the washer and dryer in that shared laundry room almost certainly isn't owned by the landlord, and it isn't a random local vendor either. There's a strong chance it belongs to a single company most residents have never heard of, CSC Service Works. This one operator manages more than 1.4 million machines across apartment buildings, universities, and military bases nationwide, making it the dominant gatekeeper of laundry access for a huge share of Americans who don't own a house. Here's how the deal works. CSC installs and maintains the machines for free. The property owner signs a long-term contract, often 7 to 10 years, and in exchange gets a cut of every coin and card swipe, sometimes close to half the revenue, without lifting a finger. For the landlord, that's close to pure passive income. For the resident, it's not a choice at all. If the building has a CSC contract, that's the laundry room, full stop, whether the machines work that week or not. Read enough customer reviews of this company, and one word keeps showing up: monopoly. Broken machines that take weeks to get serviced, a payment app residents are effectively forced onto, and nowhere else to go, because the building signed a decade-long exclusivity deal before the resident ever moved in. This is also the piece of the industry that quietly draws customers away from the neighborhood storefront laundromat. Every apartment building that signs one of these contracts is a building full of former or potential laundromat customers who now never need to walk through the door. And the ownership structure gets even more interesting one layer up. Alliance Laundry Systems, the company behind Speed Queen, Hubsch, Unimac, and several other major commercial machine brands most laundromats actually buy their equipment from, is itself backed partly by a large private investment fund. That same fund also holds a meaningful ownership stake in CSC Service Works. In other words, the company that manufactures a huge share of the machines and the company that controls where a huge share of those machines get placed both trace back, in part, to the same pool of capital. The independent laundromat owner, buying a single Speed Queen washer through a local dealer, is a small customer standing at the very bottom of a supply chain that a small number of investors quietly influence from more than one direction at once. Put together, laundromats and vended laundry routes across the country generate somewhere around $6.8 billion a year in combined revenue. And here's the part that should surprise you. The total number of standalone coin laundries has actually been shrinking slightly, roughly 0.5% a year since 2020, while total industry revenue keeps climbing. Fewer storefronts, more money moving through the industry. That gap is the vended, in-building laundry business quietly eating share from the sidewalk laundromat, one apartment complex contract at a time. Individual laundromat revenue varies wildly depending on which of the three versions you're running and where. Small, single-location shops can gross as little as $1,000 a week. Large, well-placed facilities with dozens of machines can gross $50,000 a week or more. That gap is almost entirely explained by machine count, foot traffic, and whether the location captures the wash, dry, fold, and delivery customer on top of the self-serve one. Let's run the numbers on two versions of the same business. Scenario 1. A well-run 30-machine storefront laundromat in a solid working-class neighborhood doing around $300,000 in annual revenue. The owner negotiated a fair lease without a punishing rent structure. The equipment is a mix of new and gently used machines bought below retail from a dealer closing out old stock. The owner personally handles most routine repairs instead of paying a service contract for every jam and belt replacement. The utility bill got audited, and the sewer overcharge got corrected. Under these conditions, a 30 to 35% net margin isn't unusual, putting somewhere around $90,000 to $105,000 a year in the owner's pocket, largely passive once the routine is dialed in. Scenario 2. The same size laundromat, same revenue, an ordinary year. 2 washers go down the same month, and the repair technician charges emergency weekend rates. The sewer bill was never audited and has been quietly overcharging for years. A string of card reader malfunctions over the summer sends a wave of customers to a competing laundromat 2 blocks away, and half of them don't come back. Add rising water rates and a slow creep in the local utility rate, and that same $300,000 in revenue nets out closer to 12 to 15%, somewhere around $36,000 to $45,000 for the year. A real business, but nowhere close to the passive income fantasy that got the owner into this in the first place. The difference between those two outcomes was decided almost entirely before the doors opened. The lease terms, the machine mix, the utility audit, and whether the owner actually understood the difference between a machine's sticker price and its true cost per cycle over 10 years of use. So the next time someone describes a laundromat as the easiest passive income business in America, that description is only half true. The wash cycle itself is one of the highest margin transactions in retail. But the business built around that wash cycle is a game of utility contracts, equipment financing, sewer bill audits, and a captive apartment building laundry market quietly controlled by a company most people will never learn the name of. The quarters were never really the product. The infrastructure standing behind them was.